Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Anjanette Levy. Welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, we have big breaking news, big breaking news in the Bryan Kohberger case, in the case of the Idaho 4, Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle. Please, if you're just joining me tonight, please give me a like and a subscribe, hit the bell. Please hit the thumbs up. That really helps the video get into the YouTube algorithm. But our big breaking news is that we're getting word that Bryan Kohberger has agreed to plead guilty to the murders of those 4 beautiful students. Let me put their picture up here. I was preparing to go live earlier today, and then work said, nope, you got to go live for us for Law and Crime. Totally understandable. So had to delay our live here, but this is why we are here. I usually blur the the surviving roommates' photos, but tonight, they've been harassed so much. They've been harassed so much, and people have said that they may have committed these crimes. Now I feel like it's time to show their faces because they didn't do it. They didn't do it. Bryan Kohberger is now saying that he did it. That is what's happening. So everybody who pointed the finger at the surviving roommates and possibly said that they carried out these crimes, guess what? Bryan Kohberger is now admitting, according to what the families are saying, or at least one of the families, Steve Gonsalves, the Gonsalves family page, I'll show that to you right now. He's confirming that Bryan Kohberger has agreed to plead guilty. We went looking we heard some rumblings about this today. The Gonsalves family page, it says right here, it's true, we are beyond furious at the state of Idaho. They have failed us. Please give us some time. This was very unexpected. We appreciate your love and support. Hashtag heartbroken, hashtag Kaylee Jade forever. So the Gonsalveses are confirming indeed that this is true. That Bryan Kohberger has agreed to plead guilty. There's an article out there quoting Xana Kernodle's aunt, Kim. TMZ spoke with her, and she said that the state first approached the families a few days ago, saying that the defense, there was discussion about a possible plea agreement. As you know, Judge Hippler last week denied the request for a continuance, that the defense wanted more time. He said, I'm not giving you more time. We're going to jury selection. We're going to trial in August. Jury selection will start on August 4th with voir dire. We'll have 2 weeks of voir dire. There's that Amazon Prime documentary that's supposed to come out very soon, very soon, on July 11th. And there's a book coming out. So there's a lot going on. And they said, he said, we're going to extend jury selection because of that. So that's what we'll be doing. So he was going to extend jury selection to kind of deal with all the pre-trial publicity in this case, to address those questions and concerns. Now they don't need jury selection because word of this plea deal has come out. And I contacted the courts. Allegedly there's a hearing scheduled for Wednesday where there will be a change of plea. And they said they'll have more information to release tomorrow. They're not saying anything today. And there you have it. So I'm wondering what all of you think about this. I find this so interesting, given all of the talk about Bryan Kohberger. Obviously, Bryan Kohberger has said he maintains his innocence in this. He has said that through his attorneys and from the very beginning. Now something's changed. What has changed in the last week? Or is this an instance where Bryan Kohberger, maybe his attorneys have been talking to him for a long time. Maybe they've said, they've had a come to Jesus meeting with him and they've said, we can't beat this. Your DNA is right here. They found it right here. You bought one of these on Amazon. You bought a knife and a sharpener. You bought one. It's got your DNA right here. Like, your vehicle was seen leaving the scene. We can't beat this. You bought a balaclava, a black mask. Um, yes, you might have used it for jogging, but you have all of these things that line up circumstantially, whether it's a circumstantial case or not. Like, we are not going to be able to beat this. And these are all the things. These are just the things we know about. What are the things that we don't know about? Do you kind of think about that? Even with the Dateline leak, I wonder what else is there that we don't know about? So I'm going to look at some of your comments so far, what you guys are saying. Stacey Ann, oh, that's very sweet. Stacey Ann says, Ann Jeanette, thank you for covering this from day one. You're very welcome. It's really sad and horrible. Poet Stream says, defense must have had this planned all along. This is horrible to make the parents of the kids wait 2.5 years. I've seen other cases where this has happened, where it's a death penalty case and things get close to trial, and then the defense approaches the state and says, hey, can we make a deal? It happened in the Chad Dorman case last year. His case was approaching time for trial, and his lawyers went to the state and said he'll plead guilty to the murders if you take death off the table. The whole goal of his lawyers was to save his life, and that's what Ann Taylor's goal was, to save Bryan Kohberger's life. They knew they couldn't beat this case, and so they probably have been talking with him for a really long time. The 80s kid says, all motions denied due to being absolutely ridiculous. Ran out of options. This is interesting. David Markson says, I'm heartbroken. I'm 100% convinced Ann Taylor leaked to Dateline. That's interesting. A lot of people think that. Will we ever find out now? Will we ever learn who the leak was? Johnny Knoxville says, the state should have trudged forward. Strong evidence. Going through some more of your comments. Von Krull says, hey, Anjanette and chat, surprising result here. I think Bryan felt the walls closing in with recent developments and decisions, and he made a smart choice. Sorry for disappointed family members. It sounds like the Kernodle family is also very upset. Let me pull up the TMZ article that is out there right now. I'll share my screen. Kim Kernodle, as I mentioned, spoke with Kim Kernodle is Xana's aunt. She said, according to TMZ, Kohberger will plead guilty. Prosecutors will no longer seek the death penalty. The family of Kaylee Gonsalves, I already showed you that part. Sorry, I'll skip ahead to what Xana's aunt said. Oh, I'm missing it. Apologize for that, guys. Here, I'll pull it up right now. So sorry. I have to share my screen again. The family of Xana Kernodle is livid over the plea deal offered to accused murderer Bryan Kohberger, and they told prosecutors they had better not go through with it. How about that? Kim Kernodle, Xana's aunt, who was so furious she was in tears, tells TMZ prosecutors floated the idea of a plea deal a few days ago, and the family members made it clear no way. They did not want a plea deal. The Gonsalveses didn't want a plea deal. They wanted the death penalty. When we spoke with Kim, she was on a conference call with prosecutors. She says prosecutors told her the defense approached prosecutors with a plea deal, and the prosecution went along to spare the families the pain of a trial. Kim says that's ridiculous because at least two of the families, hers and the Gonsalves family, wanted Kohberger to face a jury. Kim says prosecutors were especially concerned that the families would have to see the gruesome crime scene photos of their loved ones, but she says we know the graphics there, they were not trying to spare us. Kim also says when her family got a call from prosecutors a few days ago about a deal, they were vague. Prosecutors never mentioned taking the death penalty off the table. Well, you would never plead guilty and agree to the death penalty. That's just wouldn't happen. What's especially puzzling, Kim says, prosecutors told her there was enough evidence to secure a guilty verdict. As we reported under the deal, he'll plead guilty to 4 counts of murder, and in return, prosecutors will take the death penalty off the table. So there you have it. So I'm wondering what you guys think about this. David Markson says, I still hope Judge Hippler rejects the plea deal and forces a trial. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm looking to see what Ethan Chapin's family thinks of this. I haven't seen any comments from them. I've been checking my phone and looking to see if his mother put anything out, but I don't think that she has said anything. Gracie G says, this is way too strange for me. Something is weird. It's interesting. I was kind of wondering if something might happen, honestly. What's the Obsession True Crime says, are plea deals ever rejected? I mean, it happens, but it doesn't happen often. That's for sure. Philip Dubé is going to be joining me here soon. So he'll be joining me to talk about this as well. So he'll be hopping on to talk with us to see what he has to say. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I just was on Law and Crime with him for an hour or so, more than an hour. And we were streaming on YouTube over there. Again, if you're just joining us, we're covering the breaking news in the Idaho 4 case, Bryan Kohberger. Bryan Kohberger has agreed to plead guilty. The Gonsalves family has confirmed it. And there's going to be a hearing in Idaho on Wednesday, according to the reporting. And again, I did try to confirm that with the courts, and they're not telling me a thing. So, but they'll have more information tomorrow. Coyote is wondering if the search party found the K-bar knife that he likely tossed. I'm going to say no. I don't think that that's the case at all. I think that has nothing to do with this. Ashley Lauren is asking, Anjanette, were Bryan's family members the witnesses in the court hearing in Pennsylvania today? Would that also be a good reason to agree to the plea deal? No, they were not. Just so you know, there was a hearing in Pennsylvania today where witnesses were supposed to, the witnesses being subpoenaed by the defense in the state were supposed to show up if they were contesting the subpoena. These are witnesses that live in Pennsylvania that the prosecutors and the defense wanted to subpoena. And so they had to show up in court today and say, yeah, I don't want to go. And this is why. Like, they had to show why they were contesting the subpoena. And none of them were family members. They were other people. So now these people don't have to go to Idaho for the trial. This was going to be a 3-month trial. So it will be interesting to see. I want to know whether or not Bryan Kohberger is going to have to, say, hey, this is, if he's going to have to allocute, this is what I did. This is why I did it. I'm assuming if this just came together last week, I don't know if he's met with prosecutors, if he's said anything about if he's had to reveal why he did this, or it's just a straight guilt. I'm pleading guilty. I'll agree to plead guilty, but I'm not going to allocute. I'm not going to say anything. Who knows? But it would be nice for him to provide some answers. I think the families deserve that if they want those answers. It may not matter to them because it won't bring their loved ones back or make any sense either way. Sweet Bee Me says, hi, Anjanette and everyone. Shocked by this update, especially when the defense wanted to put forward other suspects. Well, but they were cut off at the knees. If you remember, they were cut off at the knees by the judge. The judge said, you didn't give us enough to consider that under the law. You didn't give us enough to go with that. So no dice. That's basically what they said. The judge said, all you offered me was speculation. I mean, Judge Hippler's orders were always just scathing, just telling the defense, you've got nothing here, essentially. Thank you so much for the super chat. What's the obsession true crime? Do you think that the judge will require allocution in a detailed confession to the specific crimes he is charged with? That's a good question. I was wondering that myself, and it would be probably nice, but it may not be required. But if you really want to put this whole thing to rest, this is often not required. That's almost like something you see on TV a lot. And again, thank you for the super chat. Watch the obsession true crime. But I feel like that would sure answer a lot of questions once and for all. I mean, there were so many conspiracy theories out there. Let's put the victims' photos back up again. As I said, they've been just hammered by the think about that. Think about what Dylan and Bethany have been through with all of the conspiracy theories. It's just been so much for them. And now he's admitting to it. He's going to plead guilty and say, I did this after all of this. Sirius Black says, I am in shock right now. I know he was guilty, and it does feel good to know he at least admitted it. It still feels sickening, though. Again, we've seen this in death penalty cases in the past. Chad Dorman's the most recent one where this type of thing happened. And as I said, Philip's going to join me here very soon. That hearing on Wednesday, I'll be interested to see if it's a straight plea hearing and then sentencing at a later date, or whether they do the plea hearing and they do the entire sentencing, or if they make the sentencing, if they do it all in one to just close this out. And it's weird because it's a holiday week. It's a holiday week. That's what's interesting about it. April Kitchens says, I hope he will have to give the details and say why. This is horrible. Why wait until 4-ish weeks before the trial? A twisted man. It would be interesting to know more about why they waited so long. That's for sure. And what prompted him to change his mind. I'm going to take that down for a second and pull up some other images. There are some things I want to know about. One being this. I want to know about this. What's the context around this? Did he send this to anybody, or was it just on his phone? This is the November 13th, 2022, 6 hours after the murder selfie. I also want to know more about this one and the other selfies. Like, was he obsessed with Ted Bundy, as people have said? And this is what he this is what he was described as wearing in the house that night. Was he reliving this? We can say now that he's admitting to this, was he reliving this with this? It really makes you wonder. Mikey S, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. Some got denied and some got justice. One decision that impacts 5 kids, family, and friends. What is justice mean? Undefined. Death, life. So here's the thing that's interesting about this. There will be no appeals. He'll waive rights to appeals. He'll go to prison for life. They won't have to spend money on appeals. He's obviously acknowledging he was likely going to be convicted. That's it. But I would like some answers. I'm sure the families would like answers, but will the families ever feel like the answers they do get, will they ever feel like it's enough? Probably not. I don't know if the families want answers. And when I say that, I don't know if they want to know. I don't know what the families want to know. Maybe some of them want to be able to move on with their lives. And just try to heal as best they can. And that's very personal for them. David Markson said the families wanted the death penalty. I don't know if all of the families wanted the death penalty. I do know that at least 2 of them did. I don't know what the Chapins wanted, and I don't know what Maddie Mogan's family wanted, but it's very interesting to me that the families received this letter. So the families, it sounds like, received a letter. I keep checking my phone, everybody, to make sure to see, hey, is anybody saying anything more about this? Stacy Ann says, I think the families feel like they were kicked in the gut, not only by the prosecution, but by the defense too. I mean, it's entirely possible that they feel that way. CH says, we know that Xana's mom is against the death penalty. I thought that she was, actually. I thought I had read that. Remember, if you're just joining us, we're covering the breaking news about Bryan Kohberger agreeing to plead guilty. This just came out today. Some of the family members said that they received a letter. The Gonsalves family said that, yes, it is true. They're furious. They wanted a trial. They wanted the death penalty. And they're not happy about it. Oh, and they've said more now. Everybody, they've released more of a statement now. I will read this to you and share it. As I said, Philip Dubé is going to be joining me here very soon. Okay, so there was a meeting, everybody. It looks like there was a meeting. Aubrey was unable to attend the meeting with prosecutors to beg for additional concessions to guarantee certainty in this case. Let me share my screen. So there was a call with prosecutors, confirmed. Aubrey was unable to attend the meeting with prosecutors to beg for additional concessions to guarantee certainty in this case. We are all in awe of how she was able to perfectly articulate the following, especially at only 18 years old. We are so proud of her. So this is from Aubrey Gonsalves, a younger sister of Kaylee Gonsalves. I'm keeping an eye out for Philip. Hello, my name is Aubrey Gonsalves, and I am the youngest member of the Gonsalves family. Though I am unable to be there in person, I refuse to stay silent about a situation that should never have required this kind of gathering in the first place. What the families of Ethan, Kaylee, Maddie, and Xana have endured over the past 2 years and a half is beyond comprehension. From the constant delays to the relocation of proceedings, making it harder for loved ones to attend, the justice system has placed heavy burdens on those already carrying unimaginable grief. Through it all, we have tried to hold on to hope. We've believed in the process. We've had faith in the system. But at this point, it is impossible not to acknowledge the truth. The system has failed these 4 innocent victims and their families. So they are furious. These are not just names or headlines. Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, and Xana Kernodle were beautiful human beings who touched countless lives. They are not just the Idaho 4. They were sons, daughters, siblings, and friends, real people with real dreams. They deserve to be remembered for who they were in life, not only for the tragedy of their deaths. But before that can truly happen, they deserve justice, nothing less. The introduction of this plea deal just weeks before the scheduled trial is both shocking and cruel. Had this proposal come a year and a half ago, the families could have had time to process, discuss, and potentially come to terms with the idea of a life sentence, however difficult that may be. We could have had the time to understand it, to prepare for it emotionally, and perhaps even to find to some degree of peace. But now, with mere weeks left, we are being asked to absorb and respond to life-altering decisions with no room to breathe. Bryan Kohberger facing a life in prison means he would still get to speak, form relationships, and engage with the world. Meanwhile, our loved ones have been silenced forever. That reality stings more deeply when it feels like the system is protecting his future more than honoring the victim's past. The justice system was created to serve and protect, not to re-traumatize grieving families. And yet, time and time again, we find ourselves blindsided, unheard, and unsupported. This last-minute plea deal feels less like an act of justice and more like an afterthought. We are not asking for vengeance. We are asking for accountability. We are asking for dignity for our loved ones. And we are pleading for a justice system that truly lives up to its name. So they are very upset. Carmel Lucifer, question: if he takes a plea deal, but evidence comes out later that proves he is innocent, can he be released? I think that he wouldn't be pleading out in a case like this if he didn't do it. I'm having somebody ask in text, the docket. I'm asking you if the families really have a say in it. So sorry, guys. I'm trying to keep an eye both on comments and I'm watching out for Philip. Let me text him really quickly. It's the families they may have been consulted, but the prosecutor may have just said, we can resolve this case. And, there was another case apparently where Bill Thompson resolved a case like this and the families were opposed and they didn't want this. Philip Dubé is here. Philip, Philip Dubé, he used to work as court-appointed counsel in Los Angeles County. He would have possibly represented somebody like Bryan Kohberger. So, Philip, I want to know what are you thinking about this? What are you thinking about this? This plea agreement. We just talked about it on Law and Crime. This is like Philip and I both changed our clothes, by the way. Can I tell them that? Is that a no? I had to get out of my other top. I was burning up. It was Philip. It's summertime, everybody. So, and remember, everybody welcome Philip today. Wonderful guy, great attorney, knows the law inside and out. Please hit the thumbs up, guys, the like and the subscribe, all that good stuff. Helps the algorithm and all the stuff with the video. So Philip, when you heard that Bryan Kohberger agreed to take this deal and the defense apparently approached the state, not shocking to me. The state didn't make the overture apparently. What do you think about this? What were your thoughts?
At first, I thought it was clickbait. I really did. I didn't think it was credible. I thought it was just another sort of internet trick to get me to open up some type of advertisement to tag removal or to how to buy an annuity or something, or how to cure knee pain. And sure enough, it's blown up all over Twitter. It's all over Google. It's everywhere. I think it even hits CNN and the AP. So no, it is the real deal. So the issue now is, will the court accept the plea? That is the key aspect of any plea agreement, because the court always has discretion to reject it. So now, as a practical matter, I cannot see Judge Hippler rejecting it. I don't know why he would, unless he feels that death is not good enough, if you will. And that giving him life in prison might be an injustice under the circumstances. I've never appeared in front of the man. I don't know what type of a jurist he is, but it would seem to me that when you have a meeting of the mind between any defense team and a prosecutorial team, that no court wants to interfere with that, especially if it's a life sentence, And as a practical matter, he's pleading to the max. Why on earth wouldn't the court accept that deal? He's going to get 4 consecutive life terms. The only thing he won't get is the firing squad. But knowing that he will never be released except on what we call toe tag parole, meaning, at the time of death, he'll come out in a body bag. His life is over. And what is he, 29 or 30 years old? I'm telling you, decades from now, when this case is sort of buried in the true crime annals and the true crime archives, and we're long gone, he'll still be rotting away in prison, assuming he lives that long. So I hope the court goes along with it. It's a fantastic disposition.
Just last week, he was asking for a continuance that was denied. The ruling from Judge Hippler was scathing, denied the request to introduce alternate suspect evidence. There were 4 people they wanted to accuse. 3, in my opinion, from reading this, lived nearby, had interactions with the students earlier that night, were in their social circles. Another was somebody who, just in passing encountered one of the victims. I think that Ann Taylor wanted to point the finger at some of the fraternity boys. That's just my take on it. So what did you, do you think that was the final straw? Because, she went from saying he is innocent in court to saying he maintains his innocence. So there was kind of a shift in her demeanor at some point during the spring, especially after they moved down to Ada County. It seemed like she knew she wasn't getting what she wanted out of that court. Judge Hippler is a no-nonsense guy. So what do you think changed just in the last week and a half where the defense said, okay, it was it just that they went to him and had a come to Jesus meeting, and they're like, we've done everything we can. You've got to face the fact that we can't get past this. We can't get past your DNA on here. We can't get past the Amazon records. We can't get past any of it. And you've got to just face the fact we're at the end of the line. All we can do is save your life.
She had a two-part task. Part one was the guilt phase. Was there enough proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he was dead to rights on 4 murders? And it sounds like, by all accounts, they had the goods. They have his DNA on the knife sheath. They have his car at the scene, I don't know how many times. They have him shopping on Amazon, buying a replacement sheath to replace the one that was left at the crime scene. They have a digital trail of evidence putting him at or near the scene. They have him, what else did they have him doing? It had something to do with the cell tower evidence. Didn't the phone also put him in the vicinity of the house as well?
Yes. They said that it was, and let's get this, the wording is really important here, that there was a cell tower that services the house, and the FBI cast report allegedly said that the phone was based on their drive testing models and everything, was within 100 meters of the house.
Okay.
That's a football field, or that's like a football field.
Yeah.
Or so, or not 100 meters. I'm sorry. I misspoke, guys. I'm getting it wrong, whatever I'm saying, but within so many meters, and it was like a football field, within a football field radius of the house on 23 occasions from like July to a week before the homicides.
Exactly. So it gives the impression that the guy is sort of casing the place and almost stalking them, trying to find the right time to strike. I mean, that's basically what it looks like. And they weren't able to refute it in any way. And by all accounts, they had their own independent lab appointed to look at that DNA evidence, and they were unable to counter it. So then what is part B of her task? Mitigation, the penalty phase. So she knew that she was going down in the guilt phase. So now all she had to do was find something to spare his life. And she did. She did some adult neuropsychological testing on him and determined that he was on the autism spectrum. And who knows, all you need is just one juror to find that that's a mitigating enough factor to spare his life. And then when she was in a time crunch and just didn't have enough time to work up all the mitigation, she probably said to the client, look, the end game here now is to save your life. May I please go to prosecutors and tell them that you will plead out to all the murders in exchange for life without parole? And it sounds like the client went ahead and gave her the green light. Otherwise, you don't engage in those types of settlement negotiations. I mean, what good is it? You have the talk with the prosecutors to say, okay, we'll give it to him. And then he says he won't take the deal. Well, then, you've strained relations with prosecutors, and they're going to double down and come after you in the penalty phase and really try hard to get that death verdict. So she did her job, and frankly, I'm going to probably send her a card and the prosecution a card telling them that I think that they are the 2025 attorney all-stars for settling this case. It was a just result for both sides. That's just my take. It's a fantastic outcome, assuming Judge Hippler accepts the plea.
And you think that he will accept the plea?
I do. Yeah. I mean, really, if he didn't, let's just pretend he didn't, then really what you're saying is, will you at least let him plead guilty to all the murders and let's just do the penalty phase? I mean, what's the point? At some point you have to say to yourself, even as a judge, look, neither side wants a trial here. If he's willing to plead guilty in the guilt phase, and a jury could come back with 4 counts of first-degree murder convictions, why have a trial? Why impanel 12 people and Lord knows how many alternates, incur all the expense, the inconvenience, have to schlep everybody in as witnesses from out of state, invoke the Uniform Act to secure attendance of out-of-state witnesses from Pennsylvania and God knows from where else to get them into court for a trial that nobody wants? It's ridiculous. Not to mention that once convicted and once condemned, the appeals live in perpetuity. The appeals are just unending, and that is the lion's share of the judicial cost of capital litigation. The appeals are millions and millions of dollars. It's unending. So at some point, judges, in addition to seeking justice, have to kind of, weigh the fiscal scales of justice and say to themselves, look, let's just call it a day here. Let him plead out. We'll sentence him to LWOP and close this one out.
Mm-hmm. There was a meeting today with the prosecutors, like a Zoom call with the prosecutors and the families. The Gonsalveses are confirming that. They're saying that this is what they're saying. Aubrey, one of their daughters, was unable to attend the meeting with prosecutors to beg for additional concessions to guarantee certainty in the case. So they wanted more out of this plea. Do you think he has to allocute, Philip? Does he have to say where he put the knife? Does he have to say what he did to prepare for this crime? And does he have to say what he did to clean up? Like, does he have to put all those questions to rest?
It is not required by law. It's only required if that is a term of the plea agreement that's reached between the defense and the prosecution. If prosecutors insist that he recite chapter, verse, verbatim, everything that went down and what he did, how, if any way, he disposed of the weapon, what his motivation was, then so be it. He will allocute in open court. If it is not required, then he'll just stand convicted of 4 counts of murder, and there'll be a lot of unanswered questions. And maybe someday he'll be one of those inmates who gives a Dateline interview live from behind prison walls. But otherwise, it is not required by law that he give a blow-by-blow account of every detail and everything that happened. But my guess is the victims will want all the details revealed in open court and make that a condition of the plea. Now, they don't have the right to demand that be incorporated as a plea term or part of the plea agreement, but prosecutors certainly can invite that, consider it, and decide if they want that to be one of the terms of the plea. But my guess is that it will be.
I would think they would want to know a lot of the answers to the questions to put it to rest, but you never know. You never know. They may just be over it. But I don't know, Philip. There's been so many conspiracy theories in this case too, Philip. I'm going to put the picture back on the screen of the surviving roommates. I feel like now I've been usually blurring their faces and not using their names. Artworks, thank you so much for the super chat. Very kind of you. I'm glad to report on this case. And guess what? We're not done. I'm not done reporting on this case. There's still a lot more to unpack here. There's still a lot we don't know. There's a lot more to be done as far as I'm concerned. What do you think, Philip?
There's definitely a lot. I think people want to know what, if anything, he did with that knife. I'd like to know what he did with it. It is nowhere to be found. Now, chances are he ditched it somewhere, because remember, there were several months that went by between the time of the homicides and the time of his apprehension. So Lord knows there was plenty of time to get rid of that knife. I think, and I don't know this to be a fact, that the cops knew much sooner who the suspect was before it was released to the public. I think they knew early on, based on the identification of the car and learning from campus police who had the make and model of that car enrolled at that school, and they probably narrowed it down to Bryan Kohberger. And I think they knew that they had their man, but they just did not have enough evidence to bring him in. It was the genealogy, the DNA, that did him in. in the
That's
end.
interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting that you think that. I think they've kind of said and alluded to the fact that they don't think, or they didn't know his name until they got the genealogy back. But maybe we'll find out more about that at some point.
Oh no, I think they definitely suspected him based on the automobile being registered as a vehicle belonging to a student at the local university there. I think
Mhm.
they knew that they had their man. They just didn't have the proof yet. But then when that DNA came back matching Bryan
Mhm.
Kohberger's on that snap, and he happens to also have that same make and model car that was registered on campus, they knew they had their man. He was done.
So you think they were surveilling him then? Then you're probably in the camp where you think the feds were surveilling him on the way back to Pennsylvania from Idaho,
I do.
or from Washington, I should say.
And I think he may have also suspected that he was under suspicion. Or put it this way, he was paranoid and constantly watching his back.
Hmm.
I mean, weren't there some reports that he was constantly cleaning the car? I mean, it seems he
Yes.
was power
He was
washing
wearing
it or
gloves. He was wearing gloves.
hydrojetting it. Yeah, exactly. Because he knew that they were onto him, and he was trying to surreptitiously do whatever he could to get rid of any trace evidence, DNA, body oils, sebaceous oil, anything that could somehow lead to him. So, but it didn't matter because of the DNA on that snap.
Hmm.
And by the
Definitely.
way, if they would not have had that DNA, I think he would have pulled it off. Everything else that they had on him was just too circumstantial to rise to the level of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's certainly suspicious and it raises a lot of eyebrows and it makes you curious and you want to know more. But if that's where the quantum or that body of evidence ends, I don't even think it would have passed the probable cause test to bring him in.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. Ashley Lauren wants to know, can we expect to see more information released if this plea deal goes forward? There's no point, there's no reason why they shouldn't release body camera footage that hasn't been released, all kinds of things, as long as it's not like really graphic stuff, um, showing the crime scene and stuff like that.
Well, a couple of points. First of all, for now, the parties are gagged. They're not allowed to talk. They're not allowed to do anything. So anything and everything that happens must be in open court. This is the kind of conversation that the prosecutor is going to have with all the victims' families. She might actually sit everybody down and say, look, would you like to know what happened? Do you want me to ask about some of the graphic, explicit details of how this crime was perpetrated? And if they say, yes, we want to know, then she might, in fact, include that as part of the proceeding and as part of the plea agreement. But if they say, no, we don't want to get into that, she might actually defer to that request and leave it out. And frankly, I don't think Ann Taylor would fight her on that. The less you have on the record, the better for the defense, because you don't want him to look like more than a monster than the world already perceives him.
Yeah, interesting thoughts there for sure. Um, I'm assuming if there was a meeting and they're saying, they wanted more concessions. I don't know what the family would want, what more they would want, but maybe we'll find out very soon. We're gonna,
I'll tell you what they might want is restitution.
well, true.
At a minimum, he's going to have to pay for all those funerals. At a minimum, all the burial costs or whatever the disposition was of these 4 students' remains, he bears the cost of all of that. In fact, not to go slightly off topic, I had to litigate this in the public defender's office. I had a client charged with vehicular manslaughter. It was a horrible, horrible accident on a local freeway here. He wiped out and he killed a guy on a motorcycle. The family of the dead man not only wanted the cost of the funeral, but they wanted to be reimbursed for the cost of the after party. They hosted this big event at some auditorium, and they felt that he should have to pay for all the catering. So we litigated that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the Court of Appeals ultimately ended up doing with it, but they felt that it was necessarily part of the burial. But California law, for example, is very clear. If you are convicted of a homicide and you are in fact the cause of the death, you have to pay for all the necessary and mandatory obligatory costs associated with the death. My position was the after party is more traditional and it's a nice gesture, but it is not mandatory. It is not required. And to come after somebody for an extra 20 grand so people can have some hors d'oeuvres, have an open bar, a foot-long sandwich during the lunch hour, I don't think the defendant should have to bear the cost of that. But nonetheless, that is the type of stuff that you litigate at a restitution hearing. And who knows, maybe Ann Taylor, as part of the plea agreement, will stipulate to restitution. She'll just agree to it, not contest it, and not even fight it. Because in exchange, her client's getting a mercy verdict.
Interesting. I'm going to check really quickly. Who here in the chat thinks I should go to Idaho? Philip, do you think I should go to Idaho?
Absolutely. At a minimum, it's gorgeous. You can stop in Coeur d'Alene afterwards. You can try their wine. You know, somebody told me they have a great cheddar cheese mill there. It's supposed to be out of this world. Make a trip out of it and send the bill to Law and Crime. Let them put the bill for it. Absolutely. I'll even write you a letter.
That I should bill them?
Yeah, why not?
Guys, I'm just checking to see if anybody else has spoken out about this. So just FYI. Yeah, sorry. So I'm not trying to be rude here.
By the way, Coeur d'Alene is beautiful. I don't know.
Well, we're going to be in Boise if I go.
Yeah, you make it a side trip if you can, but yes.
Yeah, it is beautiful. I've been there, but only in the winter.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap up the stream, but I'm looking to see if everybody thinks I should go to Boise. It looks like people think I should go to Boise.
I'd even go with you. We can go horseback riding. I'll side ride. How's that? You know, I'll wave to the people as we're coming down the major highway there. In honor of Bryan Kohberger's plea. Why not? Live a little.
It's really an interesting turn of events. I'm not totally surprised, but I'm a little surprised. Okay. Well, everybody, we thank you for watching. Thank you so much for checking in. I'm so sorry. I had planned to get on here much earlier, but guess what? Work called and I had to go over at Law and Crime. Philip was with me. And so we had to go live over there for work. You know, when work calls, you go to work. So we're going to wind down the stream. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on replay, thank you so much for that. Remember to like and subscribe, hit the bell, hit that thumbs up. That helps with the video. And I will see you back here, hopefully maybe tomorrow. And the next day we'll still be covering this because there's still a lot more to cover. So everybody, thank you again. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.